good evening everybody. Thank you all for coming here tonight. It's lovely to see so many ladies here in the room celebrating International Women's Day. Tonight I'll be talking a little bit about the role that Torres Strait women played during World War II. It's not a subject that a lot of people know a lot about, so tonight I'll give you a little bit of an introduction into that. Now, it can be broken down into three groups of women. There were those who were interned because they had married Japanese men. There were those who were evacuated because they lived on Thursday, Hammond or Prince of Wales Island. And there were those who were on the outer islands who were not evacuated. So there are three different stories that make the complete picture. Now for the women who married Japanese men, when Pearl Harbor was attacked, December 7, 1941, they and their husbands became, as the government said then, enemy aliens of Australia. Even though they were born here, their Japanese husbands were born here. They were still interned on Thursday Island, around where the ambulance is today, and AJ car rentals. A barbed wire fence was put up around that area and they were put in there for 2 weeks. Now the men who did that were actually on Thursday Island as soldiers for 2 years prior, so they knew a lot of the Japanese fellows and their families. So they were rounding up their own friends and interning them on TI. After 2 weeks, they were all taken by boat down to a little town called Tatura, way down in Victoria near Wangaratta. Very, very different place to live from Thursday Island. These women, all of a sudden, were in an internment camp. They had to keep their families together, their kids together. They were living in an area that was nowhere near the blue, beautiful waters of Torres Strait, and it got cold in the winter, something they were not used to. So they showed strength of character, courage, and honour by keeping their families together in those camps and returned to Thursday Island in 1947. Now for those ladies still on Thursday Island as civilians, their evacuation came in January 1942. They were compulsorily evacuated from Thursday Island. Now they were given 1 hour's notice of departure. It had to be a secret so that the Japanese didn't know the movement of the ships. They were allowed to take 1 bag per person. Can you imagine packing up 5 or 6 kids and yourself, 1 bag per person in 60 minutes, and you didn't know when you were going to return home. You didn't know where you were going. You didn't know what clothes to bring. And these women got themselves together and their kids down to the wharf, and they boarded boats like the Goodwill and the Ormiston. Now the men had already joined World War II, a lot of them, in the army. They were in uniform. And I've spoken to a lot of veterans that served up here, and they said the most sorrowful thing they saw was the men and the women being separated on TI, seeing old TI as the ladies went off on the ships and the men were left behind. Now those ladies, if they had families, they went with them down on the mainland. If they knew no one, they were sent to a place called Cherbourg, which is down near Mergen. Again, it's cold in the winter. They suffered badly from colds and skin ailments because of the cold. Now they were there until the end of the war as well. They were kept together. The other ladies, however, the ladies on the outer islands, now they were not evacuated. There was no evacuation if you lived on those outer islands unless you were a nurse or a teacher. So the ladies were on the outer islands with their children for 5 years while every man of eligible age in Torres Strait volunteered for the army and served. So all of a sudden you had no one to hunt dugong or turtle. You had no one to provide food for you apart from what you could do yourself. So these ladies got together, they formed market gardens, they educated their children, they kept the community going while their men were away. Now I know of no other place in Australia where ladies have to come together with such strength of character and force to keep their villages going while their men were away. Now I've spoken to a lot of fellows who are coast watchers on those islands. The army sent 2 19-year-olds, usually, out to the outer islands to act as signallers and coast watchers, looking for Japanese. Now they would integrate themselves into the community. And one fellow called Mervyn Nardar, still in Brisbane, he was called Tissa Merv, Teacher Mervyn. He was 19 because he had the radio, he had the link to the outside world. He still today can sing a dozen songs in island language because he was taught them by the women. And an old lady called Matilda on York Island made him his lava, which he still has today and wears. a red calico with the lace. And he is 91. Lovely story. Now, on a sadder note, Torres Strait actually is the only place in Australia where women and children were attacked by an enemy force with no means of evacuation or escape. Women and children in Darwin and Broome, Townsville, they had evacuation in roads south to escape on. Yam Island in Torres Strait was attacked by Japanese forces. They attacked the village of women and kids. Now, I'm not going to explain all of that story. I'm going to leave it to the ladies themselves. The BBC came here a couple of years ago and made a documentary, and they wanted to include a World War II story. So they went back to Yam with Mrs. Taka and Mrs. Sebastian, and you'll now hear their story as I play the DVD for you. Bridget, can we have the lights? That's all right.
Barbara's story is one of incredible spirit in the face of the most appalling conditions. This same